Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Mike Beer, taking a look at race number 11 at Kentucky Downs on Saturday. Let's throw up the field for the Grade 3 Runhappy Turf Sprint. A big field, some very fleet turf sprinters, and you got some different running styles. The number 4, Totally Boss, likes to come from off of the pace. The 10, Richie's in the house, lots of good early speed. It's an intriguing field, Mike. I think the key to this race, and arguably the horse to beat, however, is the 12, Bound for Nowhere, who's endured a couple of tough beats in his last 2 races.
Yeah, that's true. He's a really nice horse. I don't know, Dan. To be honest, I don't know who the horse to beat in this race is. Maybe it's Bound for Nowhere. He's certainly a talented horse. There are a lot of good horses in this race, though. So I guess we'll just see how it all plays out. We'll see who handles this, sort of odd turf course at Kentucky Downs, and we'll see how the pace plays out.
Let's throw up the Timeform U.S. pace projector for this race. Not surprisingly, in a race full of fleet turf sprinters, we are expecting a fast pace. Now, I'm not sure if the 12, Bound for Nowhere, is going to make the lead. He's going to be close. I just have a feeling if Richie's in the house is in this field, he is going. Richie's in the house is a fast horse. He's made most of his bank on synthetic.
He has. I agree with you. I sort of feel like he's the horse you're going to see out there cutting the pace, but I do expect Bound for Nowhere to be up close.
A horse with some tactical speed, as we see with this projector, is the number 1, Renaissance Frolic. And Renaissance Frolic has sort of had a career renaissance ever since the Connections decided to use his speed in middle distance races. He really seemed to put it all together. That being said, his recent form is a bit suspect. I'm not sure if he is a pure sprinter at heart. He is turning all the way back to 6 furlongs. He's going to be a big price in this race. I've always been a fan of his, but I do realize he's up against it.
He is. It's just cutting back to this kind of distance for him. It just feels like maybe it's not the kind of thing that will work for him. He doesn't really seem like a sprinter, Dan, even though he has some speed. We'll see how it works out. These horses are always tough for me to take, but this horse is a really big price if you like him.
Hasn't the number 2, Stubbins, just been hinting at a big race for the last 6 months or so? He ran really well over this course in the Franklin Simpson last year. He had a terrible trip in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint where he was just in behind horses and locked up till very late when he found the rail and was flying. In the Daytona, it looked like for a second there was a hole for him. Maybe he wasn't quick enough to get it, but then he was mired in traffic. And last time out in the Jaipur, he was just too close to a fast pace. Now, maybe we're starting to make too many excuses for this horse, but this time around, I think Rosario's taking him back, making one run. He could easily win this race.
That's how I looked at him too, Dan. I hear you. You don't want to keep making excuses for horses like him, but I think most of it's legitimate. And I agree with you. His Jaipur, I thought overall was fine. Was really no match at the end of that race, but he was probably too close to the pace. I do think Rosario will take him back this time, and I think he's a super dangerous horse in this race.
The number 3, Front Run the Fed, goes out for Chad Brown, Javier Castellano. Let's watch his most recent race. Optional claimer at Belmont, going 7 furlongs. Got a nice trip in this race. Second flight, 2-path, angles to the outside. Once he makes the lead, though, it's all over but the shouting. Very consistent from a buyer's standpoint, lightly raced, upside potential. They've tried to stretch him out to a mile in the past, but he is effective sprinting. 6, 7 furlongs is his game, and I think this turf course with the long stretch is going to help him get the 6.
Yeah, this is the right distance for him. He did have a good pace in that race that we just watched, and he took advantage of it. He should have another good setup in this race. Listen, Dan, I don't have any real knocks on this horse. I can't say I'm a huge fan of his based on his connections. You're certainly going to expect him to take some money in this race. And, listen, I would just rather have other horses at shorter prices than Front Run the Fed, but he could win this race.
Up next is the defending champion of this race, the 4, Totally Boss, who received a brilliant ride from Florent Giroux to win this race last year. If you recall, last year at Kentucky Downs, on this day, you needed to be close to the pace. And Totally Boss, a horse that's usually a one-run closer, got right up on the lead, close to it thanks to Flo, and was able to get it done. Now, here's more of his representative running style. The Shakertown last time out at Keeneland, Bound for Nowhere's on the lead. He is on the outside in the orange cap, Totally Boss. He got a good in-out trip here. He just runs out a racetrack, Mike, stretching out to the 6 on this course in a race full of speed. That's Totally Boss's game, and this Shakertown shows he's in good form for Rusty Arnold.
Yeah, he really is. You saw when we picked up that replay, he still had a lot of work to do there in the upper stretch, and he almost got there. Really game finish, I thought. Had a real excuse off the layoff back in May at Churchill, where he just checked right out of the race on the backstretch. Give him a pass for that one. Even in his Breeders' Cup, Dan, at the end of last year, which followed up his win in this race, I mean, he just had no chance in that race with the trip that he got going 5. This is a good distance for him. He can get any kind of a trip as far as I'm concerned. I think he's super dangerous to defend his title.
I think an angle that a lot of folks aren't going to consider about the 5 Bombard is that he's basically a tweener. He's not a miler. He's not a 5/8 horse. And we've seen that by the successes he's had going down the hill at Santa Anita at 6.5. And I have a feeling that this Kentucky Downs turf course is going to play a little bit like that down the hill configuration at Santa Anita. So maybe Bombard will handle the 6 here. This is a horse that was getting good last summer, 2019, got hurt, missed a lot of time. And last time out in the Del Mar Mile, he was in tough, but I thought the trip was there for him, and he just looked uncomfortable in the stretch.
Yeah, we'll see what he does here. I really do like him cutting back for this race. I think it's probably a better distance for him. I'm, not necessarily convinced that he's this good a horse, but maybe he is, Dan. You're right that last summer he was really headed the right way.
I'm a big fan of Kanthaka, or at least was when he was racing very competitively in graded stakes races on the dirt. He disappeared. You've got to give West Point and Graham Motion a ton of credit for taking their time with this horse. And then they bring him back off a year layoff in the Jaipur, a race on paper that looks real tough. Kanthaka ran great. Let's watch this race right now. Again, Kanthaka made an early move into a fast pace. He's there in the yellow and black silks. He's going to make a run. Consider again, he hasn't run in over a year. And this was a race where the pace fell apart. The last run was the best run, and that's a good mare that runs him down late.
Yeah, Alexandra is just all class and all quality, and she's going to get him. But this horse ran a giant race in here. Listen, you're right that the setup was there. That was Stubbins that we saw on the lead there in the upper stretch. He actually made the first move, and he got tired. But Kanthaka, he went pretty early, too, in there. That was an excellent effort. If he runs that race back, he's a handful in here.
Oh, he certainly is. And again, Motion, one of the great layoff trainers along with Chad Brown. You really don't worry too much about layoffs. I like he's given him a lot of time since that Jaipur to recover and get ready for this effort. American Anthem's a fascinating entrant for Michael Maker. This horse was purchased at public auction in November. Turned out to be a nice buy. They bought him for 6 figures, ended up third in the Carter, although a non-threatening third behind Vekoma, one of the 2 best sprinters in the country right now. Interesting spot for Michael Maker to make the turf debut. There's a little bit of turf in this pedigree, not a ton. My issue is that American Anthem likes to be close to the pace, and I just think this pace might be faster than what he's used to.
Yeah, the trip is a concern. Whether or not he's going to handle turf, who knows? I guess with Maker, you worry about it less than with other trainers. It seems like he knows which ones he wants to try on this surface. So, maybe it'll work out, Dan. I mean, he's not for me. I really have not been thrilled with his dirt form, recently anyway. Not that he's run terribly, but it doesn't seem like the same horse to me. And I'm just not going to bet on him to turn it around first time on turf.
Another horse making a surface switch is the 8 Bon Raison, still a turf maiden after 5 tries, although the only time he really truly sprinted on turf was a 5-furlong race in his career debut in 2017. He's a completely different horse right now. Graded stakes place earlier this year on the dirt, but Bon Raison's current form, I think, lacks a little bit to be desired. And again, it's just a tough spot to do something totally different, and that is switch to the turf.
Yeah, we'll see what he does. He has run on turf, as you mentioned, enough in the past to get an idea about him, but it was really a long time ago, and he is a better horse now. I like this horse. I've always been a fan of his. He's the kind of horse when he's big prices, I like to fool around with him because I just think he's a lot better than he looks on paper. Boy, he's really tough to make a case for it here, though, even with his connection showing some confidence off the claim.
Imprimis the 9 at 8-1. That's a square price for a horse that's run plenty fast to win races like this. He had a little trouble in this race last year when behind Totally Boss. Let's go to his seasonal debut, the Troy, and this is his first start since the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. He's on the outside. He rolls by everybody. He drifts in just a little bit, and that's enough to get him disqualified. But it was the 5th time in his career that he's earned a triple-digit Beyer speed figure, his first start back since double throat surgery. This horse is a warrior. He is a very good turf sprinter, and he's got tactical speed. He's not some one-run closer.
Yeah, that's true. He can get a good trip in this race. And, he almost got a good trip in this race last year, Dan, because he did get forward. He just happened to wind up down inside, and he just really never, to me, it looked like he never really came clear in there. I thought he ran fine. Listen, last time, that was the time for him. I know it was a layoff, and there were some questions about where he was with his form, but that was not a good field. And just a little bit of careless riding there from Jose Ortiz, and it cost him in the stretch because that was a race where he was best. This good race makes him very tough in here. I can understand anybody who wants to use him, especially if he's the 8-1 morning line.
I'm not going to knock the 10 Richies in the house, who I think is going to be the main speed in this race. How can you knock a horse that's won 2/3 of his lifetime starts, although most of the damage, as we've mentioned, has come on synthetic. He's capable on the turf. It's interesting that he returned off a long layoff for his 6-year-old debut and earned his career fastest Beyer speed figure, a 100, although I wonder if that had a lot to do with the pace and the competition. He got away with an easy lead that day against weaker horses. It's going to be as easy on Saturday.
Nah, it feels like this is a tough pace scenario for him. And listen, you can't really knock him. He's 14 for 21 lifetime, and he's won on turf before. The 6 furlongs isn't really supposed to be a problem for him either. But the reality is he's been very well managed by Larry Rivelli. So I think his trainer deserves a lot of credit. They've tried him sporadically in stakes races. I realize his in the Arctic was pretty good last year, but overall, he's been handled pretty easily by stakes horses in his career.
Speaking of being managed superbly, Archidust has been managed wonderfully since Steve Asmussen took over the training. Just found 2 great spots at Monmouth, including this race that gets serious stakes. And I liked what Archidust did. There's not a lot of pace going on. He's on the far outside in the pink cap. He still has a lot of work to do, Mike, with a 16th of a mile to run. And maybe Archidust is just better than these horses, but this is a game and determined finish.
Yeah, it really is. He's just going to get up at the end. I like the way he finished in this race too, Dan. Overall, he's pretty good. I don't know if he's this good. He's really facing the top sprinters, maybe for the first time in his career, actually. So we'll see how he handles it. But he's got a great running style, and he should be a fair price in here.
Final horse in the body of the race is the 12 Bound for Nowhere. Bound for Nowhere showed his ability and affinity for this surface when he won the Tourist Mile in 2018, able to stretch that speed out to the mile. His Shakertown in 2019 was just an excellent performance where he battled every step, did all the work, and Imprimis ran him down late. He's run sporadically since then. Couple tough beats in his last 2 races. I have to admit, I was a little disappointed when he got run down by Sistron in the San Simeon, but his last race, I think, indicated a return to form.
Yeah, I feel the same way. His San Simeon wasn't terrible, and it's worth noting that it was, there was a little give in that turf course too. I didn't love that loss from him. But last time in the Shakertown, it was almost a carbon copy of his Shakertown from the year before. He was under pressure on the lead the entire way. He would not relent, and he just got run down at the end. I thought he ran really well last time.
Let's take a look at our top picks for the Grade 3 Runhappy Turf Sprint. We're both going with Totally Boss in here. He likes the course. His last race indicates he's in superb form. He's going to get the right pace setup. And I think he's going to be a fair price in here, Mike.
That's what I thought too. He fits right in with these horses. I do think he'll get the right trip in this race, and I just think he's good, Dan. His overall form is solid. He's had some excuses recently, so I just think he's coming into this race the right way. I'll admit that I almost put Stubbins on top because I do think that Rosario is going to take him back and make one run here.
You're going 4-2, 12 and 9. I'm going 4-3, 9 and 6. It's the Grade 3 Runhappy Turf Sprint. It's race 11 on a gigantic afternoon of racing at Kentucky Downs with an approximate post of 5:36 Central. Best of luck.